Tommy Rex, and you're listening to today's Boondoggle.
This is Mark Metcalf, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle with Bailey on Domain Cleveland Radio.
You are listening to today's Boondoggle with Bailey on Domain Cleveland Radio. Yes, Kato Kalin listens to this all the time.
Welcome to today's Boondoggle. Now, here's your host. Incarceration, America's rock, metal, and tattoo festival returns this summer with Limp Bizkit, Disturbed, Bad Omens, plus Gojira, Papa Roach, A Day to Remember, Motionless in White, Ice Nine Kills, Cypress Hill, The Used, and so many more. Incarceration at the Ohio State Reformatory, July 17th to 19th. Passes on sale now at incarceration.com.
What's going on, everybody? It's Bill Bailey with today's Boondoggle, and I'm looking forward to the conversation I'm about to have with Mr. Matt Zane. What's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me back. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Last time, let's see, episode 342, we had you on, and we were talking about the Everyone Dies documentary.
My last movie that came out last year, yes. And for those that don't know, Prime Video, #1 on Thunderflix, also on Relay, Director's Cut on Everyone Dies, themovie.com. So thank you very much for promoting it. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man, it was quite an interesting story, and it was good to talk to you about it. Always something going on in the world of Matt Zane, seems like.
Yeah, I don't really plan it that way. I hope that my next movie that I'm going to be doing next year, which is already planned, it's already been verbally agreed to, which I can't discuss yet. It's a lot less controversial, and it would be nice just to do something without having thousands of people attack me on a monthly basis regarding it. So, but that's not now. That's next year.
Oh, well, we'll have to have you back for that one then too.
Trust me, you're going to want to have me back. It's going to be another good one.
Awesome. Yeah, so the last one kind of covered your the last tour with your band Society One as well, and now there was a lot of controversy involved with that, with some people with the backstage episodes and all that stuff, of course. But the latest thing in the news that has been going on is involving your relationship with Wayne Static and the documentary that you were looking to put out about him and Tera Wray. Mm-hmm. I guess for the audience, I would want to kind of go back a little bit to discuss like when you first met Wayne and your friendship first started. It was like a 14-year friendship, correct?
Yeah, I met Wayne probably in 1996. It was right when Koichi joined the band, the original guitar player. That's how I met Wayne and Tony and Ken, all the original guys. I knew Koichi through another friends of mine. They were all in a band together, and it was a really good band. And he actually ended up leaving that band to join Static X. At the time, they were only called Static. And I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, like, he's leaving this really good band for this other band. I mean, what does this other band have? I mean, they must be really good. And it just so happened that we both had rehearsal spots down at this place called Downtown Rehearsal. And it's a really famous spot. I honestly don't know if it's open anymore or not, but everybody rehearsed down there. I mean, like really famous big bands from, the Melvins, the Fear Factory, everybody, And we were actually down the hall from the guys in Static X. And I remember when Koichi joined the band, I would actually, on my break from rehearsing, would walk down the hall and like stick my ear up to the door because I wanted to hear what the hell they were doing. Because I couldn't believe that Koichi like left this other band to join Static X. And that's initially when I met, all the guys. And at first, the relationship that I had was primarily with Tony and Ken and Koichi. Wayne and I were friendly. We knew each other, but Wayne was a different guy back then and far more conservative. And so much so that at one point we were actually booked to do a show with them at the Roxy prior to them being signed, I believe. And Tony and Ken, who used to come to my parties, believe it or not, in my shows, when they were all for it. But when Wayne found out about it, he was like, oh, no, that we're not going to play with Matt. We can't do that. We were totally cool with each other after that. But that's honestly how our relationship started. It wasn't until 1999 that it kind of shifted into me more being a filmmaker. And I actually filmed those guys in 99 for one of my projects at the time, which was like a video magazine docu-series type thing called Loud Times. And that's the first time I officially filmed Wayne, as well as the rest of the band. And I actually have that footage, and some of it's in the movie. The movie almost starts out with me actually watching me film that footage. It's kind of surreal now to think about it and to see it in the movie. But that was the first official time that I filmed him. But that's how our relationship started, and got off on a kind of weird foot. But it obviously, rebounded later, down the road.
Gotcha. And then, I was reading too that you had entered, or you knew Tera before you had met Wayne or became friends with Wayne. And then how did you meet her, and how that relationship come together?
So what ended up happening is after 99, my band ended up getting signed to a record deal, and I started touring the world, and I left the adult industry. And I didn't really talk to Wayne all that much over the next 6 years. I mean, seriously, we may have crossed paths on the road maybe twice. I remember one time specifically, but it may have been 2 times. And then my band got dropped, and I was off the label, and I had to get a job. So I went back into the adult industry, and it just so happened that who I was hired by, they hired me because of the fact of the amount of success that I had from the previous years, like 7 years ago when I was on VH1 and MTV and on all the magazines and all that stuff. And they said, hey, we have this new contract girl, and we want you to basically make her a star, kind of like what you did 7 years ago with the whole rock and tattoos and suspension and all the crazy stuff that you do. And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. I need a job. I'll do whatever you want. Just pay me. And so they said, yeah, great. I said, so who's the contract girl? And they said, oh, it's a new girl that we just signed from Kentucky. She used to work over at Hooters. It's her name's Tera Wray. And I said, great. When do we start? And I think it was within a couple of weeks that she was on set with me for the first time. And we met that day and started working together. I actually have the very first day that she was on set with me in the movie. It's actually filmed and documented for the actual movie. And you get to see her in the makeup chair from the very first day and almost hear the first conversation that we're having with each other. And that's how we initially met each other. And we knew each other for almost a full year. What ended up happening is that she did get relatively famous and her career was really taking off. I introduced her to Dave Navarro. They actually dated for a short bit. She was doing a lot of things. We were doing a lot of things together. And then ultimately the company that we worked for said, well, we need to make her even bigger. And so how do we do that? And they go, okay, well, Matt's brought her into the suspension, Dave Navarro, rock, porn, whatever, but what's the biggest tour out there right now? And it was Ozzfest at the time. And so my company made a deal with Hustler to put her in the magazine and get her on the lingerie bus and get her out on the road to kind of like push her up and make her a bigger star. And that's where she actually met Wayne. And if the way that she tells it, and she may have mentioned this to me, but I'm not sure, she already knew that Wayne was going to be on that tour. So she was like, I'm hooking up with Wayne no matter what. And I don't know if she planned on them falling madly in love and being together after that, but it was definitely her intention to be with him prior to getting on that tour. I mean, she was very conscious of it. So that's how it ultimately happened, and that's how she was brought into the fold with Wayne. And then she said to Wayne, hey, I work for this guy, do you know Matt Zane? And Wayne's like, yeah, of course I know Matt. I've known him for forever, and that's how it all started.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I wasn't sure if you introduced them or how that worked. worked out?
I get. It's a lot of people will say that I introduced them because of the fact that I was the one that got her kind of onto the tour through the company that I worked for, but I didn't directly introduce them. They tell the story very publicly. So I have a clip that I licensed of them telling the story for the movie. But basically, she was asked to do shots on stage with Wayne by their tour manager at the time. And when she went up on stage, she whispered in his ear or something like that, something that I'll leave for the movie for those that don't know. But it got picked up by the mic and the whole crowd heard it. It was kind of racy, let's say, what she told him on stage, because this was her opportunity. And after that show, Wayne actually told his tour manager, go get that girl that was on stage that said that thing into my earpiece or whatever. And that's how they actually met. So I didn't directly introduce them, but yeah, she was on that Ozzfest tour because of me, because of what I did and what we built prior to that. But the actual introduction was done not even by their tour manager. Wayne was the one that requested her after she actually got to meet him. He asked a bunch of girls to go up on stage to give them shots. I think there was 6 or 7 girls. I have a shot of them on the side of the stage before they walked out to do it. So I mean, he didn't like bring her up to Wayne. She just happened to like finally get on stage, run up to Wayne, say the thing. And then later Wayne said to the guy, go get her. And that's how it really went down. And they'll tell you that themselves in the movie.
Gotcha. And then, I mean, you had said that you and Wayne kind of got started on the wrong foot a little bit, but time went on. And then, like I said, you ended up having like a 14-year friendship with him. When did you guys reconnect? And when did that, would you say that friendship started to solidify?
So after he met Tera on that Ozzfest, I knew they were dating. Tera told me they were dating. But honestly, for me, I just thought, okay, great. You're dating Wayne Static. I didn't think anything of it, to be completely honest with you. Everybody is going to tell you that they met in Ozzfest and they were inseparable from that moment forward. But that's not really how it happened. And I go through it in the film. So I was still doing stuff with Tera. We were still doing all this stuff. And I knew about Wayne. I knew they were dating. But he wasn't around initially. It wasn't until one day she called me and said, oh, Wayne wants to come to set. And I said, okay, whatever. And Wayne showed up to set. And I'm telling you, it was the weirdest thing ever. I said, hey, Wayne, what's up? And it was like 6 years never passed. Like we sat down immediately in like the back green room while people were in makeup. And we just started catching up immediately. And he was so open about everything that had happened over the last 6 years that I really was kind of taken aback, because I remember us being friends 6 years prior, but I never remembered us getting along as well as we did. Like to him, it was just like no time had passed and there was never an issue and there was never a wrong foot. It was like we had that little thing that happened, but then boom, we were just sitting backstage, just shooting the shit. And man, we did have a connection, unfortunately, because he did talk to me about his old guitar player that got in trouble with the law, who people that know the story know what I'm talking about. And his brother was my drummer. So we had that connection. So we discussed that whole situation. We discussed his girlfriend that he had broken up with before getting right together with Tera and all the problems they were having with that. And we talked about stuff that was going on, with him and Tony and whatever. And it was just nuts, man. It was just like immediate. Like from that very first day on set. And from that point forward, it was just normal. It was just what happened. We just started just talking like we had been friends forever at that point. And I'm going to be straight up. Like I was taken aback by it. But at the same time, because it was so natural and it was so cool, I didn't really, prevent it or feel weird about it. It was just it just took me aback, honestly, initially. Now, after the first month of seeing him every other day, you know what I mean? And hanging out with the three of us, like it was gone, like then it was just like normal, it's like, oh, Wayne's here. Oh, there's Tera, you know what I mean? But so that's how it ended up redeveloping after the initial meeting back in the mid 90s.
So then you guys were like connected, hanging out. Then when things fell apart with him and Static X and he left the band, but did you still stay? Because you said before you were like friends with Tony, and did you stay kind of? Where were you at when the whole thing happened?
So when Wayne came back into my life with Tera, at that point I never saw any of the other guys. At that point it was Tony and Koichi and Nick Oshira was in the band, and I knew Nick too. I never saw them at all. It was just 100% Wayne. So I'm not going to say there was like an allegiance towards him or the other guys, but I really had lost my friendship with the other guys. Not because if we had a falling out, we just did not really talk anymore. You know, like I said, we saw each other on the road or whatever, but now with Wayne, I was, you know, around so much. So when that whole split happened, I didn't really think anything of it. I did stop talking to Wayne and Tera for a brief period of time after that breakup, but it wasn't because of anything that happened with the band. It was because Tera left the adult industry and I was still contracted by the company, and she just broke her contract. So there was a potential legal issues there that they had to contend with, and they didn't want to have anything to do with anybody in the industry. And I was unfortunately kind of wrapped up in that. So I hung out with them for like 2 years straight. And then you know, she left the industry. Then Static X happened for about a year more, and then, or maybe 9 months. And then he left Static X. It was after he left Static X that we then reconnected again, about, you know, 9 months later after she left the industry. But I knew he was going to leave Static X because he was talking about it on set, you know, in 2008. You know what I mean? So I knew that it was coming. You know, I mean, I knew about it probably more than anybody, really. I mean, I'm sure Tera knew obviously before me, but yeah, he just showed up to set one day and started talking about it. So for people that get really confused about the timeline of events, in 2007 and 8 is when we hung out. 2008, he talked to me about leaving Static X. Tera leaves the industry in 2008. 2009, Wayne does his last tour and album with Static X. He leaves Static X, and then we reconvene pretty much right after that. As far as
your contract was up, and then you could start.
Yeah. So basically, so what happened was I left the adult industry, and I started directing music videos. I became a legit music video director to a certain extent. I wasn't big. I was doing a lot of local bands, but that was a totally different thing I was doing. But then we got reconnected through a girl that I started to date that actually happened to be their neighbor up in Joshua Tree. And she said, "Oh my God, you know Wayne and Tera?" And I go, "Know them. I mean, like, we spent every day together for those 2 years. I knew Tera a year before that. I knew Wayne back from '96. And she's like, "Oh my God." She picked up her phone. She texted Tera immediately. And Tera was like, "Oh my God, we all got to get together." And that's how we reconnected. But prior to us reconnecting, I don't know if my girlfriend at the time told him, "Oh no, he's doing music video now," or whatever. But it was like the moment she texted him, they were just like, "Oh no, we need to hook up. We need to meet up." Like, "Oh my God," like, because she texted Tera, she didn't text Wayne. And Tera's like, "Oh yeah, we've got to meet up." And once we met up, they knew already prior to the first time we even met that I was done with that, and I was out of the industry, and I was on a whole different trip now. So it wasn't really an issue anymore, and that's why we were able to pick back up and have a relationship again. And nice. Like I said, it may have been a year, it may have been 9 months. I don't really know, only because you know, it was a long time ago, but it was definitely less than 12 months because I only go by like what happened in terms of like, okay, she left the industry and then Static X broke up, you know what I mean? And so I kind of like just judge it by I know like the years, you know. Static X broke up in 2000. Tera left the industry in 2008. Static X broke up in 2009. 2010, we just happened to reconvene by chance through a girl that I was dating that happened to be their neighbor that they knew.
Yeah, and I was going to ask too, then, like how you got involved with, filming Wayne's solo project, but obviously you said you already started kind of branching off to that. But
the way that it happened was I mean, just to show you again, like just the way that Wayne was. So my girlfriend at the time texted Tera. Tera's like, "We need to hang out." I think like next week we hung out, and Wayne and Tera said, "Oh, let's go bowling." And I I was like, okay, whatever. And we all got together up in the desert and we all went bowling up there together. That was the first time that we had seen each other in about, again, 9, 10, 11, whatever. And just shooting the shit, having a good time. And Wayne, while we were bowling, just said, hey, I know your work ethic. I know your skill level. I want you to shoot my promo when it's ready for the new record that I'm working on called Pig Hammer. And I just said, okay, cool. Yeah, let's do it. And that's how it happened. I don't know if it was a month later, 2 months later, 6 months later. I honestly don't know when that first thing we shot was, is because it gets blurry in my mind because there wasn't like monumental points to hang my hat on. It was like, okay, well, I'm dating this girl. We reconnected. They both live like this far from each other. So it was just kind of like, okay, we're hanging out and doing whatever. But I eventually got the call and Wayne said, all right, look, we're doing this Pig Hammer promo, but we're going to be shooting the album cover at the same time. Can you come and actually shoot something while we're doing the photos? And I said, it's going to be tough, but yeah, we'll just, because he got this crazy location, like with the morgue and the whole bit. So when you see that album for Pig Hammer, the cover, I was there when that was shot, and all the promo for that album was shot the same day. And I actually have behind the scenes footage in the movie of us just goofing off and having fun and talking and doing whatever on the set in between the photos and doing like the little promo thing that we did for that album. And that's how it all started. But after that, after he saw that, it was like everything that came up, whether or not we actually shot it, he came to me first.
Okay. Yeah. So then when he started doing like some of the videos with it, even if he didn't film it with you, he was kind of getting your guidance.
No, he only went with me.
Oh, he only filmed with you. Okay.
Yeah, that was it. So after that, the next thing we did was the Assassins of Youth music video. And that was his first official music video that he did after he left Static X. And it's his favorite video. It's on record. That's his favorite video that he ever did. Yeah, he just called me up and said, hey, I want to do a video. Can we meet up? But that was normal. You know what I mean? I was still dating the girl at the time. And I went down to the rehearsal space. At this point, I believe he'd gotten rid of his Burbank house. And so they were staying in their rehearsal studio. And it was closer to me where I live down here in the Valley in LA. So he's like, oh, yeah, I'm down here. Let's meet up over at the rehearsal studio. And I remember going, and I don't like telling this story because I get so upset over it. And I'll tell you why. I show up and Tera's in full clown makeup. And I'm like, what are we doing? Are we going to film something tonight? I actually brought my little camera with me because it's how I used to take notes. And she's like, no, I'm just, trying stuff out or whatever. And okay, great. And we sat down and he goes, oh, I got to tell you what this is about and whatever. And I set my camera up and I filmed the whole thing. And that's one of the pieces of footage that I actually lost. That's not in the movie. I used to have that entire meeting documented, all 3 hours of it on film with Tera in full clown makeup and Wayne telling the story in his own words. And it still kills me to this day that that's unfortunately one of the pieces of footage that I lost. I mean, obviously you're not going to be able to retain all the footage that you have, but that's how it began. Luckily, he still has talked about publicly the Assassins of Youth music video, and I do have behind the scenes footage of that as well. But yeah, that was the very next thing that we shot. So it didn't matter whether it was that or when Run DMC called, he called me for that, or that it was the documentary, every single thing that happened, it was like, okay, let me give Matt a call first, and not everything that we talked about didn't get shot, but I still got the call first. He didn't end up shooting with other people, but we had even more projects planned to shoot than we actually did. And now I kick myself, over it, but what are you going to do?
Yeah. Now, yeah, you mentioned DMC too. That was that was the last music video. Noise Revolution? Yeah. Yeah. The last music video he ever did was with me. I directed that video and that's in the movie as well. I was driving through the Panga Canyon one day and Wayne called, and that wasn't abnormal. You just call me whenever, you know what I mean? And I just pick up the phone. I'm driving through the Panga Canyon and he's like yelling at the other line. He's like, fucking DMC. We're going to do a video with DMC. And I'm like, what? He's like, dude, you got to go meet with him down in the city. And
I don't know, week later, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, I don't know. But that was Wayne. That was Wayne that put that whole thing together. And I went down and met with DMC, you know, in some super nice hotel down in the city at the time. And that was crazy because I'm sitting there with DMC and we're downstairs in public, and it was impossible almost to get the meeting done because everybody's just like running up to the guy, you know, like it was just, I was like, oh my God, I felt like a real Hollywood player at that point. But Wayne was the one that set all that up, and I directed that music video as well. And yeah, man, another unfortunate thing, dude, when that video got done, I sent all the raw footage over to DMC, and I didn't hold on to it for whatever reason. And I later contacted them to try to get it from them, but they lost the drive. So luckily I have a couple of behind the scene clips and interviews from that, but again, not everything that I should have. But you know, like I said, what are you going to do? But it's interestingly enough that it was at that video that when he was leaving, he said, hey, I have something I want to talk to you about. And that's when we talked afterwards, and he's like, hey, I want to do like this reality show that later developed more into like a documentary type thing that they wanted to do. And that's how that began. What a lot of people don't realize is that when we had that conversation and we shot that music video, that was around 16 months before he died. So it was really getting up to the end right there when we you know, talked about that. We talked good 2 months maybe about that, and that brought us up to about 14 months, 13 months before he died. So yeah, I mean, this was something that was discussed rather extensively up until like, you know, the last year of his life. You know what I mean?
Now, when you guys started, you know, discussing this, because that's what I was going to ask. I don't know if it was like, if there was like kind of mentions of it previously of all the times you guys worked together, but as this started becoming becoming like a serious intention for them, did you, I mean, you know, we know how unfortunately he passed away. Were you noticing any changes or, you know, health things with him along that last year?
Yeah, I did. And it's really unfortunate. I'm going to tell anybody that thinks they know anything, they probably don't know anything. The real people that were there, and there were a few, and they discuss it in the movie. There was a point, and I can tell you exactly when it was and how it happened. And it's so simple. Wayne looked amazing in his mid-40s. You know, 2.5 years before he died, he looked amazing. Go look at the Assassins of Youth music video. That was literally shot under 3 years before he died. I remember being at his house up in the desert, 4th of July, probably 2.5 years before he died. Looked amazing. Unbelievable. Like, nobody could believe how good he looked for his age. And then what ended up happening is he ended up developing a hernia, but he just didn't get one. He got triple hernia. And that was the point. I don't care what anybody tells you. I saw him all the way up until the hernia, and then I saw him after the hernia. And after the hernia happened, it was just kind of like Father Time came in and just said, I'm going to now give you back the 10 years that I've been withholding off of you. It's just like the switch in his health was just so apparent at that point. And people just want to say, oh, you know, drugs. Yes, he did get back on the pills after the hernia. It is true. And he was drinking a lot. And I don't hide the fact that I'm not making excuses for him. But the hernia was so bad, the triple hernia was so bad, that after he had the surgery, he was in bed for a month. He couldn't get out of bed for a month. Okay. And then when you factor in the fact that he's in bed for a month, he can't get up. Tera's taking care of him, right? Then he's got this issue with Tony not letting him use the Static X name to tour, all that stress. You've got this legal case that's on him because of something that happened with his tour manager, where his tour manager tried to frame him for drug smuggling. You know, he can't tour because he can't make any money because he's, you know, in bed. You know, can't get up even, you know what I mean? And he's in pain. You know, you add all of that up, And he publicly said, and this is why I don't mind talking about it, that he even went on Prozac for a slight bit because he was so depressed that, he wanted to kill himself. And I don't care who you are, you add all those things up and man, that's going to do a number mentally on you, but then also the hernia, then plus all that stress on you physically, that it did a number on the guy. Now, he did start to bounce back in that last year. But I think the damage that had happened during that time was too much to overcome. And, I think that's really what was the cause of it. I think his body finally, gave out. Yes, there was partying, there was drugs, but you can't discount a triple hernia with whatever happened going wrong and him being bedbound. And then plus the amount of stress that he was under, not being able to make any money, going bankrupt, all that stuff, all the people that were against him, all the shit that was being talked about. I mean, so I think that really affected him. And I think it caused too much of a dip in his health that he wasn't able to kind of pull back from. And honestly, Tera actually thought that he may have caught something when he was in China also, because he wasn't doing really, really that well after China at all. Obviously, that was only the last couple months of his life. So yes, to answer your question, that's a long about answer. It was noticeable, and he noticed it too. He told me on the DMC video, he was like, I'm fat now, and he wasn't fat yet, but he had gained a lot of weight and he continued to gain weight. So, he was aware. He was very aware. He was always very aware of everything that went on around him, of what was going on, and aware of his health and what was going on. And he did seem a bit off after that. He wasn't quite, he was still Wayne. He was still incredibly intelligent, still very conscious of what he wanted to do. He had a plan. But I just figured it was like, man, it must have been a lot worse than he let on. Because we talked all during that moment. But when we talk, he'd just be like, hey, man, don't tell anybody I got this hernia. I got to come off the road. I got to do this. And he was just always just kind of keeping it together. You know what I mean? Because I never went up there and saw him when he was bedbound. I don't think he wanted me to see him or anybody for that matter. So you could tell there was something. I personally thought he was just going to bounce back, because on a personal level, I have known him when he, had partied too hard in the past, and then he just gets sober for a while. And so he'd pull himself back, and I'd be like, oh, okay, well, cool. I guess you don't got to step in. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. They think it was just like he met Tera and it was 7 years of just absolute insanity. You know what I mean? Like of just a downward spiral. But it wasn't like that. It was like this, honestly. There's a part in the movie where, and this is early, this was in 2008, where I'm up in set and I turn to Wayne and he's there and I'm like, hey, everybody, it's the legend, Wayne Static. And he used to always bring a bottle to set and drink on set. And he didn't have a bottle with him. And I go, Wayne, no bottle? He's like, yeah, I'm not drinking. I've stopped drinking. I was going a little too hard. My kidneys were hurting me a little bit. And that was one of those moments where it's like, oh, this guy is conscious of what he's doing and he's backing off, So that's what I thought was going to happen after I saw him the last time. Then it happened again, after the Assassins of Youth thing, where he straight up told me, he's like, oh yeah, dude, we got really out of control. We're off the pills. We stopped this. I'm drinking, right now, but that's it. And so again, it was like, oh, okay, well, he got really crazy and now he's pulled back. So when I saw him after the hernia, I just figured, okay, he looks rough, but he's going to bounce back. He's going to be able to pull out of it. It wasn't one of these things where I looked at him and said, oh, I need to have some type of intervention. And in retrospect, maybe that would have helped, but, maybe his health was already gone too far. But it was also just because I had known him over those 7 years, like, okay, went too far, pulled back, went too far, pulled back. It was a yo-yo. You know what I mean? So it wasn't just this like super downward crazy spiral off a cliff type thing that a lot of people try to tell you that it is.
Gotcha. Yeah. I'm a person in recovery myself. So, I've seen a lot of people that did well, and then, next thing you know, you just don't know. It's cunning, baffling, powerful, as they say, and they get pulled back out and don't make it back. But, like you touched on, it's like, you hear a lot of the outside chatter, the people that were on the outside looking in, that weren't there, try and say, oh, well, he went downhill because of his relationship with his wife, or, and then I didn't realize that, how bad things ended up getting with the old band members when he decided to leave, that, that it got legal, it's like they were, that always sucks, when there's like a family and then the divorce happens, Yeah. So I can't imagine that adding to everything he was dealing with. And then alcohol's one thing, but after a major surgery like that, it's like big pharma, man. There's no so many people have gotten taken out by just going to get like a tooth pulled, and then they get hooked on something and they're done.
Hey, listen, I don't claim to know when he started taking pills again, but I can guarantee you it was probably when the hernia pain started up on the road. But as far as him getting into drugs and Tera getting him the drugs, I mean, dude, I got somebody in the movie, and I don't want to give it away, until it comes out, but I've got somebody that was in the camp on film just basically saying, no, this is when Wayne got into pills for the first time, and this is the way that it happened. And Tera wasn't even in the picture yet. And so people that always try to tell that to me, it's laughable to me because it's just not true. And when I knew her for that first year, I never saw her do drugs. She didn't even drink. So I don't know if she had done them before me or whatever, but I can tell you this. She's not the one that got Wayne into them, because I got a guy that basically says, this is what happened, this is how it went down, and this is how it occurred. So I'll take the story, the information from somebody that was actually there. That was, when you see the movie, you'll get it. You'll see it and you'll be like, oh, it's not
like
just
fans or whoever, they always have to have a bad guy. They have to have a scapegoat and someone to blame. And it sounds like Tera, unfortunately, took a lot of that,
She's just an easy target. Coming from porn, just lacking a lot of respect. And, Wayne knew that and was constantly struggling with it with his band members, with crew members. They wouldn't see Tera as a person after they got married. They didn't want to give her the respect of just even being a human being. And it's really unfortunate because it didn't really necessarily have to go down that way. People say, oh, he chose her over the band. Partially true. But the other thing that people don't realize is that Wayne wanted to go solo after his first record. He's on record saying it. You know what I mean? So she's not even really to fault for all of that. It may have been somewhat of the influence, to do it because everybody was treating her like a piece of shit. But yeah, man, he wanted to go solo, starting with Machine, because it's on record that he wrote all that record while everybody else was out partying. He actually ended up getting more publishing on that record. It's a fact. Why do you think the guys gave up more publishing if they actually wrote something on that record? Do you know what I mean? Like it's all there. It's just that all these facts and everything have just been buried under the rug now with the resurgence of the new Static X, and they're just rewriting their story to fit the narrative that they want to get across. And you know what? If they want to tell that story and remember it the way they want to tell it, that's their right, but nobody's really speaking up now for Wayne and Tera and what they wanted to say and what they wanted to get across. And it's funny that I ended up being the guy that has to do it, because even the family's not doing it. They're letting the narrative be taken and run with by these guys that didn't talk to Wayne for the last 5 years of his life. And one guy in the band, the new lead singer, that wasn't even Wayne's friend. I mean, they basically were acquaintances for X amount of years. You know what I mean? So it's really unfortunate the way that it unfolded. I mean, you said yourself, you just said, oh, I didn't know about everything that happened with the legal disputes of the name and the money and everything at the end. Wayne was not happy about that. I have him on record saying it. Now imagine how he'd feel now about certain people being in charge of his and his wife's story. You know, like who's speaking for him now and the messages that they wanted to get across. You know, so that's really more what this movie is about than I think anything. You know, I maybe not more than anything. I think their love and their relationship comes first. It's a love story. But, you know, part of it definitely is getting out really what I feel and know Wayne would have wanted to get out there. And that's not speculation. You know, there's people in the movie where you're interviewing them and they're like, yeah. And then, you know, Tera's like wanted to get this documentary done. They're talking about the documentary in the documentary, you know, by multiple people, by the way. And it's funny because I actually talked to some other people that aren't in the movie and they're like, yeah, we remember Wayne talking to us about that, you know, and what they wanted to do and stuff. So, you know, it's not me just making this up and coming out of nowhere. You know, it's me saying, hey, you know what? This is what they wanted. And I'm going to prove it. You know, when the movie comes out and it talks about these important things that a lot of people have just swept under the rug, or this misinformation about Tera or Wayne or their situation or what they were doing or where they were at, it's all going to come out eventually, hopefully next year.
Now, going back to like, you know, after the hernia surgery and everything, and you kind of like, you said you hadn't seen him in a few months, but I mean, all those years of forming that relationship and that friendship, kind of walk us through like the day you received the news that he passed.
Well, I mean, what ended up happening is the last year that he was alive, we did not see each other a lot. After the reality show thing fell through, the documentary, because of funding, we basically said, all right, no problem. Let's just put it on hold. We'll reconvene around the holidays. And I was like, cool. It wasn't a thing because we actually had the same agent, believe it or not. So we were not only in touch, we were in touch through our same booking agent. And I knew his manager at the time, Lindsay. We were talking and meeting up regularly. So I was still very much involved. But I pulled back a little bit from the day-to-day because Tera and I had, you know, we never fought. We never had a big falling out, but we were butting heads a little bit towards the end, only because she became incredibly protective of Wayne at the end. And everybody became somewhat of a threat because he was sick, you know? And so I just said, you know, I'm going to back off a little bit. You know, it's no big deal. Wayne and I got plans. We're fine. No big deal. I got called to go do the Noise Revolution tour. So I just figured that would be a good place to reconnect. But I had too much work booked. So I just said to the agent, ask Wayne if I can do the last day on the tour. And Wayne was like, oh, Matt, yeah, absolutely. Put him on the last day. So I did that show. That was in May, late May. We saw each other there briefly, but we did talk. And then everything was kind of, Wayne was right about taking a little break because we had spent a lot of time together up until after the DMC thing together. And it wasn't, we were very intertwined with each other's life and everything. It got to be a bit much, and having to be involved with all their stuff. You know, Wayne did make the right decision about us kind of just taking a break and reconvening later, because when we saw each other at that show, it was like, boom, it was like back on again. We were like, Tera was like, oh my God, Matt. And Wayne's like, ah, you know, it was just like a whole thing, you know? And I knew then it was like, oh, okay, we're good. It was May. I was like, all right, cool. I talked to his tour manager that day. I knew they had some other stuff coming up. I'm like, all right, holidays coming up, December, whatever. So we split up that night and we just went about our life. You know, he had another tour. Then he had a tour with Power Man 5000 booked. Prior to that, he had the show in China. Again, I'm talking to Lindsay, you know, everything's fine. Wasn't talking to Wayne or Tera, but, you know, everything was good. I was planning to reach out when the tour stopped. And then all of a sudden, you know, October 31st, night of October 31st, I didn't find out until the next day, you know, that he passed, you know, in his sleep. And I just, I didn't know how to deal with it. Like, honestly, it was just kind of like, I ran through a bunch of things that I don't know if a lot of other people ran through, because to me, I first and foremost thought like, oh, no. Like, I thought he would have gotten off the pills again, or his body just gave out, or, you know, whatever. Like, I don't know. I thought about that. I thought about like, I let them down. Like I shouldn't have, you know, taken that break, even though it was the right thing to do at the time. I thought about me not taking that tour, you know, and not being able to see him, how we'd never be, you know, it was just too much, honestly. I didn't really deal with it probably until like now. You know, I needed that 10-year span. And the reason why I needed that this much time is because I lost Tera 14 months later, you know, and, you know, when Tera passed, I screwed up again, because I called Tera when Wayne passed, and, you know, I knew her family was coming out, so I let it be. And then we did meet up and we did talk a lot between then and then the original memorial. And she said, oh, Matt, I want you to come. I want you to sing Assassins of Youth because you directed the music video, you know, one other song. And, you know, can you call up Dave Navarro? And, you know, because we're all connected, you know, the whole bit. And, you know, we met up that night and talked. And she's like, I want you to do all his stuff and the movie and the whole bit. And she was on stage with me that night. And we talked at the very end of that night. And I just said, look, Tera, I don't know what you need right now. I said, but I'm here for you. I said, anything that you need. I said, I'm whatever you need, you know, we can do the videos and this and that or whatever and stuff that we talked about earlier in the night, like later, but anything you need personally, like I'm here for you. You know what I mean? And we said goodbye that night, and I wanted to give her space, and she didn't reach out to me. And I thought, I don't know if it was because we had a little thing before Wayne died. I didn't know if she wasn't going to be able to handle to us hanging out because Wayne she'd be reminded so much of Wayne, but she didn't reach out. And then I started seeing her post about me on Wayne's Instagram. And I thought, oh, okay, well, I think she's coming around because she's talking about me. You can still go and see the post, you know, my favorite director. This is when we did this, Matt Zane, whatever. And I thought, okay, cool. She's going to reach out. She's going to reach out. And she never did. She never reached out until the morning that I was going to call her. And the morning that she, you know, ended her life, she went on my Instagram and liked something. And I saw that she liked it. And I was like, okay, she's got to be coming around. It's been a year. I said, I'm just going to call her tomorrow. And that was the last thing that she ever did, like to contact me. And then that was it. Then she was gone. So, you know, you asked me about how I dealt with Wayne's death. While I was ready to deal with it, you know, I was dealing with Tera, and then Tera died. And then it was just like that guilt all over again. It was just like, why did you let so much time pass? You know, I thought I was doing the right thing, you know, and then when that happened, that just crushed me, because then it was like, I felt to a certain extent, I let Wayne down to a little bit, but, you know, we talked about that. But Tera, I really felt like I just screwed up. You know what I mean? Like, I knew she was talking to friends because my ex-girlfriend at that time, who we met through, was talking to her and going to see her and all that stuff. And I knew she was staying with Jay Jones, their friend and tattoo artist. So I knew people were taking care of her. I wasn't leaving her out there to dry. But I didn't think that I was the guy that she needed, or the person that she needed she needed time, you know, but yeah, it just didn't work out that way. So when that happened, man, that's when it opened up a whole new wound, you know, with Wayne. And now they were both gone. And then it was just like, you know, I had to bury that shit for years and years and years and years and years and years and years, because, you know, you spend all this time and all this creative energy and all this personal time and all these conversations with these people, and very intimately. And again, not to be gross or weird about it, but like, I literally started meeting Tera through shooting her adult films, you know what I mean? So like, and we were so close. I mean, it was to the point where, again, like, I only tell you this to give you an idea. I mean, they wanted me to shoot them having sex at one point, to remember when they were hot and young, you know, and we didn't do it, but that's like how deep our relationship was and how comfortable it was. And then all of a sudden now, you know, Wayne's gone, and then, you know, you fuck up by, you know, not reaching out to Tera. And again, she had a support system. She had close friends. I knew that she did whatever. I think she did what she was going to do. But then that happened, and it was just like, oh, you know. So anyways, I don't know if that answers your question, but I had to include both of them because it was a traumatic thing, you know, that because it all happened, you know, Wayne passed, and then 14 months later, she passed. Luckily, her and I did reconnect, like I said, after Wayne's death, and everything was fine. But after that, it was only like 11 months or something before she ended her life. And it was just like, wow, you know, like now they're both gone, you know?
Now, during that time when you guys were all together and he was, you know, doing the solo project, you have mentioned that you have some unreleased music of his. How did that come to be in your possession?
So there's three things with unreleased music, and they're all different, varying levels and interesting stories. In the movie, I discuss about when Wayne wanted to write music for a project that Tera and I were doing called Radium. So I have unreleased music that he did for that. It's bits and pieces. It's not very complete, but it is him. It would take a tremendous amount of, you know, playing and finagling to get it together, to get it out there. But it does exist. So that's that first, but that's very limited. It's more riffs, actually, you know, and little vocal ideas here and there. There is a second batch of music that was actually professionally recorded in 2013. I believe 8 songs. I am not in possession of that. I need to make that legally known. And I will not tell anybody. I will not tell the lawyers who has that. But it does exist. I know it for a fact. And the people involved with that music are willing, and as well as I'm willing, to give 100% of the money to the family if they allow us to finish it. But they won't. We don't want any money. We just want to finish it as a solo record because the last completed material that Static X and Edsel Dope got, they stripped Wayne's vocals off it and rewrote the music. And they didn't need to do that because the music was done. And we don't want them to do that to this music. So the family did ask me to give them that music, but I won't do it because I'm not going to do that to Wayne. This was his real last solo record. The DMC song, Noise Revolution, came from those sessions. So it's real, you know, it's there. But that's a secret thing that's going to be hidden away until the family comes to talk to me about it. Then there's a third box of music that came directly from Wayne's sister, Amy. That was given to Edsel Dope. Edsel does not want to do, or at the time, he did not want to do any more music for Wayne. He was burnt out on it. So I told Amy, asked Edsel, you know, have you listened to all the other music that I gave you? And Etzel's like, look, no offense, but I'm burnt out on it. I don't want to do any more Wayne music. I can't deal with it anymore. And so I told Edsel, I said, look, dude, give me the music. We'll do whatever contract you want. I'll go through it all, digitize it all. I'll fix it all up. I'll give it to you guys in the estates first. You can decide whatever you want to do with it, but give me whatever you don't want to do with tracks for my movie. And he agreed to it initially. And we got the tapes and the whole bit, and I was about to bring them home. And right when I was about to bring it back, he said to me, and I didn't know at the time, you know, why he said this, because everything was fine at the moment. He goes, you know what, leave those here. And I was like, okay. Well, you know, and he taped them up and he stuck them on a bottom shelf in the back of the warehouse. And they sit there to this day. So there is a decent amount of material out there. And in all honesty, as controversial this may be, because you asked about the music, and I do have to bring this up because it is real, and I know it to be a fact. His old guitar player, the one that got in trouble, Tripp Eisen, for whatever he did, he actually has material as well. And it is real Wayne Static material. Some of it is completely done as Wayne intended it. And then there's stuff that's more like rough. So there's really 4 different sources of material that are out there. I don't know if the band, I don't watch everything that they post, or I don't even know what they're talking about. I don't know if they admit this, but I can tell you it's true. I've heard it all. I've heard bits of all of it. You know what I mean? Like, I know it's out there. I know it exists. I've seen the tapes from his sister. You know what I mean? It's just, it's unfortunate because the estate, for whatever reason, doesn't want it to come out.
Now, I was going to ask you too. You mentioned him a couple times, but what were your thoughts originally when Static X decided to be reborn and Edsel stepping in?
Well, I mean, dude, I knew before anybody, because Edsel called me and was just like, I know you have all this footage of Wayne, and I was shooting all his stuff for Dope, not all of it, but a lot of stuff, and Drama Club. And, initially I was interested, but I was a bit apprehensive. I didn't know, what it was going to look like or how they wanted to do it. But I was open to it. It was when, I sat down with Edsel to talk about it, and he goes, yeah, we're going to do it. And I said, okay, interesting. He goes, would you shoot the first promo for it? And I go, okay, well, what do you want to do? And, how do you want to do it? And he explained to me the idea. And it was a really cool idea about a girl opening up a treasure chest and all this stuff. And I was like, yeah. And I was still kind of on the fence, about it. And I said to him, all right, dude. He goes, well, Matt, I have a song. Let me play the song and let me know what you think. And then you can make up your mind. And he played me the song, and it was really good. And I said, man, this really feels like Wayne, because it was Wayne. And I don't know if he told me it was Wayne or if he told me it was him. I don't really remember, but I just remember the song being really good. And I'm like, man, this could be really good. I want to be a part of this. So I sat Edsel down and I said, dude, I'll do this. I said, I'll overlook the fact that, Tony and him were really on the outs and really weren't talking for they really actually hated each other for the last 5 years of his life. I go, I think that fence can be mended, because I was decent with Tony, I said, but there's one thing that I can't condone. I said, you just can't work with Tripp Eisen. And I said, the reason being is not me. It's because I talked extensively with Wayne about Tripp, and he really didn't like him. And, there was a lot of issue there. And it's a lot. I'll talk about the issues. I don't mind, but it was different than what you may even think. There was like multiple reasons why he had situations with Tripp. So I said, I just know, I said, I don't know how he'd feel about working with Tony. My gut feeling says is he wouldn't like it. They don't want anything to do with the guy, but some time has passed. I said, but I know for a fact, no matter what, under any circumstances, he wouldn't work with Tripp. So as long as it's not with Tripp and it's not involved with this reunion, then I'm fine. And Edsel's like, no, he won't be involved. Little did I know that song I listened to, Edsel did with Tripp. They were working together behind my back. And so, and I know a lot of people are going to be like, you're bullshitting. I have pictures of them in the studio together. They were working together, and I didn't even know it. I was being lied to. So I'm going along with this reunion thing, starting to shoot this stuff or whatever. And behind my back, Edsel Dope was working with Tripp Eisen. And I'm like, holy crap. If I would have known that, I would have never gotten involved. So to answer your question, yeah, initially I was like, yeah, I'm going to do the videos. I'm going to offer my footage. I'm going to start getting involved in your guys' documentary. I suggested it making their own, because they asked me, about a film project to do. That was originally my idea. But I did it all initially under the idea that it was like, okay, it's about Wayne. It's a memorial. It's all in service to him. Tripp's not involved. I never thought that it was going to turn into a robot with puppets on stage and, whatever it is now and the type of music videos they're making now. If I would have known, I wouldn't have done it initially. Now, full disclosure, any band can get a new lead singer. Any band's allowed to do that. I'm not talking shit about those guys in that respect. They want to get Edsel Dope to sing the band. That's their business. Go ahead, do it. If the fans like it, show up. But it's not what I was interested in. You know what I mean? Like I thought it was going to be more of what they initially sold it to me as. And again, if I knew where it was going to end up, and if I knew that Tripp was going to be involved, I wouldn't have initially got involved. And to clarify once again, it's not a personal. I don't agree with what happened to Tripp or whatever happened in his life, but this more came from a place of what I know Wayne would have thought. And Wayne had a lot of issues with that guy, and it went beyond the legal issues. Just so for anybody that's curious about it, I know it's a touchy subject to discuss, but him and I talked about it extensively, and he had a lot of issues. Now, in fairness, by the end, he also wanted nothing to do with Tony either. So, but that's my personal thought about why I was involved initially. And that's why I co-directed all those initial music videos. Like, nobody knows that because I pulled my names off them. But I was on all those sets. I literally held the camera on most of those sets, all of them, all these years. The very first one they did, all of them, I was on there, Hollow, I shot all that.
Wow. And then now I saw that the family wants to like support, like Static X is looking to do their Evil Disco documentary, I guess. Did this come up as a retaliation because they heard that you were going to do the Wayne and Tera one, or was this already something that they were planning on doing?
This is the problem that nobody knows, man. And like, you're not going to believe me when I tell you this, but they called me, Static X. I was doing their videos and stuff already, and they wanted to do some other film project. And I told them, I said, why? I go, dude, do the documentary. I was the one that told them to do it. And then they hired me to shoot it. So that official documentary that you're talking about, I shot that. I was the one that thought about it. I shot that. I have me on camera filming that documentary. When they did the screening for Wayne's sister at the studio, I was there. I was in the room. I shot Wayne's sister for that documentary. I'm the one that filmed that. So I was incredibly involved in that movie on every single level that there was, finding people. I'm the one that called Dave Navarro. I'm the one that figured out a lot of the stories and stuff that happened after he left Static X. They're not openly talking about that now, but I can easily prove it. That's why they won't say that I'm lying. So it wasn't a retaliation. It was something that was already being made that I made for them. The reason why my movie came about is their movie initially was about Wayne. And I was like, cool. But then it started to shift because Static X kept getting bigger. And then they started to make it about the robot and about the puppets. You know what I mean? And I was like, you know what, guys, this is happening. It's this, what the path that you want to take, that's your business. I'll help you make this movie, but let's just be honest here. It's not really where I started off to make this movie. I said, so let's not fight about it. How about I make my own movie? And initially they were okay with it. The initial deal that we made was, you make your movie after our movie comes out. And that was the initial deal that we struck. And Edsel and Tony did know about that.
So what do you think changed with, especially with like the family involvement? Because you said you actually filmed his sister.
Yep. Yeah.
In their documentary, but why do you think their stance has changed and not allowing you to tell your story of Wayne and Tera?
I know, because Edsel and Tony called them up and fed them some horrific story about who I was and what I was going to do and how I was going to make Wayne and Tera look, and scared the shit out of them. And that's when they turned on me. Because prior to that, when I was talking to Amy, literally face to face in the same room, talking about Wayne, talking about old times, no problems. Years ago, I posted something on Instagram about Tera on the day that she passed away, about a remembrance post. Her mother wrote me, thanked me for the post. I have the message still. I can prove it. So no issues. I was on the initial memorial. Family was there. Talked to them. Hello, whatever. This, and they saw me with Tera. So it only switched when Edsel and Tony decided to call them up, and I don't know what they told them. But after that, man, they won't even talk to people that are associated with me that know me without a lawyer present. So they must have fed them a line that who knows what they told them to turn them against me. Who knows? And it's crazy because, like I said, Tony didn't talk to Wayne or see him in the last 5 years of his life. That's the reality of the matter. The last thing that Tony ever said to Wayne is through an email, "I hope I never have to see you again." And you know how I know that? Because I have Wayne on video saying it. So everybody that's going to try to get me for defamation, it's not going to happen. I have it on video. And I have it backed up on another drive that's off-site. And as far as Edsel's concerned, they didn't have any issues, but he didn't know the guy. So the family's listening to Edsel, a guy that barely knew Wayne, and Tony, a guy that told him that he never wanted to talk to him ever again, and never spoke to him saw him in the last 5 years of his life, over me, a guy that was actually there, that, made Wayne's music videos and knew him, in all those years and all that gap. But they're deciding to listen to these other people. And it's really unfortunate because I feel that the family's probably just misinformed. I think they've just been told something that they believe in, and I don't hold it against them because I think they're just being lied to.
Now, do you think that, like we mentioned at the beginning, last time you were on here, we were promoting your documentary for Society One, the Everyone Dies, and it's pretty edgy. It's pretty controversial. Do you think that they're afraid that is going to continue with it, like you're going to almost exploit Tera and Wayne?
Yeah, I'm sure that's what Edsel and Tony told them. I'm sure that they said, "Oh, he's a real edgy filmmaker and it's just going to be all about drugs and sex." Now, look, I don't shy away from that aspect of their lives because they loved it and it was under control for the majority of their life. People got to remember, man, the downward spiral was at the very end. Of course, it ended badly. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. But it was a very minute portion of the other parts of their life, and I cover all of it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just, thinking as someone who's, like I said, a person in recovery who's, I've even had, I've lost a family member to mental health, to suicide. And it's just like when I lost my nephew to that, it wasn't just like, a lot of members of the family still feel it to this day. That Wayne's family lost a son, they lost a brother, Tera's family lost a daughter. Do you think they're just afraid that this entire thing could be just like pulling the scab off old wounds?
Well, then why allow the band to make a movie? Why allow them to tell the story? If it's really about picking at a scab or opening old wounds, then why allow them to say it? Why not put a limitation on the story they told, which was, okay, you can do the movie, but do it up until Static X and end it right there. But they didn't. They let them in the movie because I edited the movie. You're talking to a guy that saw Evil Disco. Now the edit has probably changed since then because they had to pull out a lot of footage they had of mine. But up until that, I know exactly what they talked about because I'm the one that edited it. So that's not the case. It's not about that. I remember sitting there, watching it with Amy and the way that they discussed it, and the story that they spun in that movie. So I don't think that's it. For me, if I was Wayne's parents or brothers, sisters, Tera's, especially Tera's family, I'd want this movie to come out more than anything because I'm actually going to humanize her and I'm going to end a lot of the rumors that have been around for 10 years now. And nobody has more footage of Tera than me because of all the time that we spent together. And it's good stuff. It's fun stuff. It's positive stuff. So I don't know what everybody is so up in arms about. I would think they'd want to see their daughter healthy, young, happy, smiling. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just, I was thinking, when I was getting ready to do this interview with you, and looking into the stuff that you sent me, I'm trying to put myself in, the family shoes as well to see because I didn't know about like Edsel and Tony reaching out to him and stuff, trying to figure out like, I understand you're respecting the wishes of your friends that have passed, but it seems like, also like the family's wishes could be respected as well. But if they're being, sold like some wrong, I mean, have you had a chance to, I know lawyers are involved now, there's cease and desist and all that, but have you had any kind of chance of just a one-on-one with the family or any kind of?
They won't talk to me. They won't talk to me. Yeah.
Just to clear your side of it. No.
If they would talk to me and see some of this footage that I have and some of the narrative of the story that I'm telling, I think they'd probably change their mind. But you got to remember, Edsel and Tony, they're making sure that they don't get on the phone with me. People have to realize something about this. And I know you're trying to think about it from the estate's point of view, and you're trying to understand it that way, but you're not understanding it from the right way. There's millions of dollars involved here with Static X as a corporation. Millions. That band makes more money than you think. Okay. So think about the fact of how much money Edsel and Tony are making. They don't have to split that money with Koichi and Ken, the guitar player and the drummer. They're hired guns. So everything they make, they get to split. And then they have to get a percentage over to the estates. Now imagine getting in however many hundreds of thousands a year, 3, 4, 500,000, whatever it is, right? And not wanting to have that jeopardized. Imagine the lengths that you are willing to go to protect that, right?
Yeah.
You're going to lie. You're going to cheat. You're going to steal. And it's exactly what they are doing. I know things that they've done that I'm not going to say publicly because I don't want to get more lawsuits against me because I can't prove it. It's just stuff that I've heard from people and dealt with. But that's what it comes down to for the main people that are driving this. They're trying to make it like the family's driving the dissidents against what I'm doing. It's all stemming from them. And the reason why it's stemming from them is because of the money that's involved. Do you think they want to give up any possibility of, I don't think they would have to. I don't think the movie would affect it, but they don't want to take that chance. You've got to understand, like Edsel has a family. He's got a couple of houses. He's got a Tesla or whatever, like stuff's cost a lot of money. He likes to fly first class. You know what I mean? Wants to put his daughter in private school, Think about that. Think about the driving force. Like, he's looking at me like I'm taking food out of his kid's mouth. Mm. Think about what you'd be willing. I don't know if you have kids or if you have a family, but think about what you'd be willing to do for your kids. You think he cares about lying to somebody? Edsel just thought Wayne was a junkie. That's all the way he thought about him. You know what I mean? He doesn't care. He's got to tell some lies to the family about somebody that actually knew him. He doesn't give a shit. Give me my money. I've got a kid to raise. I've got a fucking house. I got a wife. I'm old. I'm in my 50s.
You mentioned too that they do throw some money towards the estate.
Yeah.
So that's going to Wayne and Tera's family. Is that almost like they're kind of giving them paying them off too?
Well, first of all, I mean, I probably shouldn't say this. So I will say allegedly. Allegedly, they only pay Wayne's family, and they refuse to pay Tera's family. Allegedly. I heard that from an inside source. So that would also make things more interesting as to why Wayne's family would control the situation, how they would want Edsel to control it. So this could come down to money. Wayne's family may have been lied to, or they may also just be really used to the money that comes in every month. I don't know. Yeah. It's speculation at that point. I don't want to say that it comes down to that, but I will say.
And I'm just speculating myself, I'm just thinking.
there's a lot of money involved. When there's a lot of money involved, man, things change. You know, things people do things, and you know, listen, Koichi, the guitar player in the band, I've heard that he's afraid to talk up because he doesn't want to lose his job. You know, I know other guys that have been banned from going to their shows that used to be their ride and die roadies back in the day because they didn't like what they were doing. So they've been, you know, banned from going to Static X shows. Guys that was with Static X the entirety of their career. They just don't want to jeopardize the cash coming in, you know?
Wow.
So, you know, some of it I can prove, some of it is just from what I've heard, some of it's allegedly, you know, so I'm not saying any of this is fact. I just want to, you know, put that out there, but I'm allowed to have an opinion. And, you know, I'm allowed to say certain things that I know to be true. You know, I know Edsel Dope owns 2 houses. You know what I mean? I know that they stopped and destroyed the deal that I had initially to make this movie. I was initially offered $45,000 to make this movie from a production company down in Burbank. Edsel Dope went in and destroyed that deal so I wouldn't get the money. That's a fact. He literally went into the business and had a meeting with the head of the president. And he's like, no, I'm not. I'm going to make sure Matt doesn't get the rights to it. $45,000 deal done. I know that I was offered money not to make this movie through a third party. I was offered 10 grand not to make this movie before it started in December. When it all went down, somebody called me and said, what if I could get you $10,000 to not make this movie? A week later, when I refused that 10 grand, another guy called me up and said, I have a bigger movie that you can do. I'll get you money by Friday, but you have to drop the other movie. That call came in a week later.
Wow.
These are things that really happened, you know? So I haven't talked about either of that publicly yet. That's real, man. You know, if I have to go to court over that to get the guy that owns that production company, I will, you know, because I don't think he's going to want to lie under oath. You know what I mean? Like, nobody knows these things. They just think I'm just some guy that's just like, oh, whatever. They don't know that I've been intimately involved with the Static X camp since they've come back. Music videos, social media. Dude, I toured with them twice.
Yeah.
You know? So it's like they can say whatever they want, that I'm a nobody and ignore this guy, but I was fine up until they decided that, you know, they don't want me to make this movie. You know what I mean? It was all fine. They said, yeah, make the movie. It's all good. I get the offer to make the movie. I call them up. Hey, Edsel, what's up, dude? It's here. You know, can we do the deal that we talked about now? Nope. Sorry, can't do it. What do you mean you can't do it? I basically worked for free almost for you for the last couple of years making your movie. Like, you paid me like less than minimum wage. The reason why I did it was because they were giving me the rights to make the movie that I'm making now. I said, do you think I would have worked for $100 a day for 2 or 3 years to do these massive music videos and commercials and all this stuff if I knew that you weren't going to give me nothing? You know? And he's
so it was just his word. Nothing was ever in writing then.
No, and you know, the way that I thought about it is, well, I'm not going to sign over my footage until we sign this deal. So they had to obviously do some re-editing because they can't use any of the footage that I gave them to use, you know. But, you know, I mean, it's so crazy, dude. You won't believe this, but there was a point at the end when I was working for them, they had to switch studios or warehouses and offices. And I went down and helped them do that because I was basically on their payroll for like no money, basically. And at the end of the day, they were like, you know, look, you know, you've done a lot of really good work for us. We know that we've paid you nothing. I think their exact words, like almost nothing. We know that you're waiting for your movie, you know, so here's a bunch of stuff. And they gave me like guitars and bassists and recording equipment and all this stuff the day that they were moving. And it was a lot of stuff. And it took me 2 cars to actually get it down from their warehouse. And, you know, at that point I thought, okay, you know, the movie's going to come later. They're going to sign off on it. But they gave me all this stuff. This was a really nice gesture. You know what I mean? I felt really good that day. I really felt like I had a sizable amount of equipment. You know, I already have a ton of equipment, but I felt like really that the music side of my life was huge again because I have to spend so much money on my video stuff. That's how I really make my money. When all this went down, they sent a guy over to my place to take everything back. And he sent over, and he was there. He was like, "Man, I'm really sorry I have to do this." And I said, "Chris, I don't want to get you in trouble. I don't want to get you fired. I know you're here to do a job. I mean, technically, I don't have to give any of it back. But like, they're sending a dude over here, you know, with a big van. Like, I'm not going to cause." Chris was a really nice dude. You know what I mean? But he's like everybody else over on that camp. He can't lose the money. He makes really good money. He doesn't want to lose his job. I said, "Dude, I know that you've got pets and a girlfriend and a life, and I don't want to jeopardize you. I'm not going to cause any problems. So here you go." I just gave it all back. So not only did, you know, I lose all that money, I lost the deal, I lost all the equipment. I did all that work for them, you know, switching warehouses for nothing. They took everything back.
Wow, incredible. Now, before we get ready to wrap up, man, I forgot what I was going to ask you. It was, I mean, wow, that's just now. Oh yeah, I know what I was going to say. If from the outsiders looking in, you know, it's just like, okay, it's one thing when the current Static X is saying you can't do this, and it's like you guys fighting each other. But when they pull the family in and they're saying, we don't want this released, we're going to legally, you know, that's when it makes it look, you know, like, do you think if the family supported you, you would be set? This thing would be coming out, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's still going to come out. I mean, they can't stop it, but they can sue to get it pulled after it's out. But right now, they can't do anything because I haven't shared any clips. So what are they going to sue me over? For all they know, and their lawyers know, and I'm sure their lawyers have told them this, it could just be me sitting right here with a microphone going, and then this happened, and then this happened, and that happened, and that happened. And if that's what it is, if it's a one-man show of me just talking into a microphone, you know, like, how are they going to sue me for that? You know, so they don't know. Yeah. It could be anything right now. They can't sue me until the movie's out. So the movie's going to come out. I'm in production on it. I'm taking donations, you know, any which way I can to try to get this thing done, you know, because it's not cheap, man. These movies are not, they're not easy to make, nor are they cheap, even documentaries.
Yeah. And then, I mean, do you think at the end of the day, when all is said and done, even though you did get pushback from like the family, do you think this would, are you going in with the intention, like you said, to kind of humanize Tera, to, you know, that it would be something that they could sit back and watch and be like, okay, you know?
I hope that when it's released, and I hope they see it, I hope they watch it, I hope they realize that they were lied to. And I hope they like it. I hope they enjoy it. I hope they change their minds. I hope we can mend the fences. Because, you know, I know Wayne would have wanted that. And I think that's really the right move and the way that this would all get settled. But you never know. They may never watch it. They may interpret it differently. They may think that it was a little too raw and emotional, because it is. It's very real. It's very raw. It's very emotional. So I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see.
All right. And as far as where it sits right now, I mean, it's pretty much completed. You're just waiting for.
No, I'm still in production.
Okay.
Yeah, man. So the reason why it's taking so long, because I do get this a lot. People are like, "Why are you talking about it? Just release it or shut up." I'm like, it's not done yet. You know, the problem is that because Edsel and Static X destroyed my funding, I have to pay for this. So how am I going to pay for it? Well, I have to work, you know? So like literally 2 weeks ago, I was on the Fox Studios lot working for them. A week later, I was doing a thing for, I don't even know what the hell I was doing it for, some other crazy location. Then I was on a music video, you know what I mean? Or then I did this remix. So I'm having to work and get money in, and then any time every day, even if it's an hour a day, I jump on and work on the movie. So that's the problem. You know, if I actually got that money initially from the company, I'd be able to finish this and finish it relatively fast. But it's tough. It's tough to get it done. I gotta live. I gotta pay for everything that you see, all the equipment, where I live, car like everybody else. I'm just like a normal person. I don't have 50 grand in the bank. I used to have more than that, but my last movie, sucked all that dry. So what are you going to do?
But as far as you're concerned, though, the concept, the storyboard, you have it's you know what you were going to start with, what you want to tell, and how you want to finish it, basically.
Oh, absolutely. The outline of it is complete.
Yeah.
But it grows as I get further into it, because certain information will pop up, certain footage will pop up, because you would be incredibly surprised by how many people have contacted me secretly saying, like, here's a piece of footage nobody's ever seen. I want you to have it, but not the band, because they get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's growing and refining, and it's coming together, little by little. And then there's the technical aspects of it. There's the restoration of all the footage. There's the restoration of the audio. There's the creation of the music that has to sound like Wayne Static music, but not be Wayne Static music, because I don't have any rights to the Wayne Static music. It's a rather large undertaking. Of course, you have all the color grading, audio levels, and just the editing. Like, the movie's over 2 hours. You know what I mean? I'm hoping to get it done for next year.
Gotcha. Now, for any of the people out there, hearing your story and want to support and donate to it, where would you send them?
Just go to any of my social media accounts, like @LordZane on Instagram, Mr. Zane Rising on Facebook. You can just Google my name. I come up everywhere. You can just send me a message, because I can't do anything publicly, because anything I do publicly, the band attacks, Static X attacks, and gets people to badmouth it and cause problems and stuff like that.
Yeah, didn't you have like a crowdfunding thing or something?
Yeah, they destroyed that. They released they released a press release 12 hours before that launched. Don't give any money to this. We reject this in its entirety. Yeah, everything, every corner, every turn I take, they just do everything they can to just get me shut down. They know that if they can financially cripple me, that it'll be impossible to finish this film. And that's the main issue, because it's like anything else. Listen, dude, if I had 100 grand in the bank, I could just get it done. But I don't. So yeah, I'm under it, man. I don't have the same resources as all of them. And what are you gonna do? It is what it is. One day at a time, $1 at a time. Anybody that wants to donate, man, like, I don't care if it's $5. I don't care if it's $3. Like, everything helps. Not to get too technical, but literally the rendering of the old footage to up-res it properly is not even free. I have to rent the software, but then to use the program within the software that I rent is additional money. So every second that you see, every second that I'm rendering is costing me money in this film. It's not even self-contained within the editing program. I'm paying out the ass to even get this thing up to the level of where I would like it to be seen. I don't want it to look like an old video from 10 years ago. I want people to watch it and not get caught up in the technical shortcomings of it. And they have the technology now in order to do that, but it costs money. They've opened up a lot of the same technology that you see in HBO and Netflix to people like me. Problem is, it just costs a lot of money. Now, Peter Jackson has different proprietary stuff that I don't have access to. But the stuff that everybody has access to now, if you have the money, is really good. So you're going to get to see Wayne and Tera in a lot of these clips look great. It's really fun to watch, because like I said, yes, last year, rough. But up until then, oh my God, they look great. You know what I mean? Wayne looked amazing. Amazing.
Nice. Well, Matt, I appreciate your time, man, and getting to hear more about this story. I hope everything gets to work out for you, and fans can gather together and support you.
Thank you very much, and as usual, thank you. We'll have to get together again next year, because we got together last year. Now we're together this year. Next year, after the movie comes out, we'll have to get together again, and we can do a whole new thing on the movie.
Sounds good. All right, Matt, thanks for your time.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
All right!
girls, grab your beers.
Hey everybody, this is Charlie from Anthrax, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle.
This is Mark Metcalf, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle with Bailey Domain Cleveland Radio.
You are listening to today's Boondoggle with Bailey on Domain Cleveland Radio. Yes, Kato Kalin listens to this all the time.
Welcome to today's Boondoggle. Now here's your host.
I am Monty Heath, SO1 Heath, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle.
Hey, what's up? It's John from Skillet, and you are listening to today's Boondoggle on Domain Cleveland Radio.
Pass the